In today's video, going down memory lane but not too far, we have a motherboard that you might have seen in a couple of my builds in two varieties. One was Carbon EKX and the other one was, well, basically this one, the MPG Z690 Carbon Wi-Fi. Now this board, even though it's well, not a past generation, but still older than Z790, can still do wonders when we're talking about general performance benchmarks, and is definitely packed quite a lot. Now, when we take into consideration the Z690 and Z790 and the price range, this one is currently on Amazon going for $329, which is in these terms and in high-end motherboard segment quite alright price when we're talking about the 12th and 13th generation of processors for Intel Core. Then we have DDR5, we have loads of M.2 slots and all the other slots as well, and headers as well. So we're going to dive in today to this motherboard and see how relevant it still is. Pairing it up with 12900K, checking out the benchmark for the processor, benchmark for the RAMs, to check it out in some synthetic benchmarks, and of course going throughout the board and checking what does it have. So basically, as usual, we're going to check out some features. So when we're talking about performance and in general some details, what we can say is it has direct 18+1+1 power design with the use of 75 ampere smart power stage. It supports DDR5, Lightning Gen 5 up to 128 gigabits per second bandwidth, compatible with PCI 4.0 devices. It has Lightning USB 20G, which means that it has USB 3.2 generation 2x2, which goes up to 20 gigabits per second. We have Audio Boost 5. Talking about the VRM cooling, these passive heatsinks, comparing to the past Z690 that I covered, this one is full in terms of thickness and weight. So we have, of course, fins for better dissipation of the heat, and it's quite thick, so it keeps the VRMs at load on 12900K at 61 degrees Celsius. We also have loads of passive heatsinks here for the NVMe SSDs, so you're kind of protected from thermal throttling when using this board with your M.2 SSDs. I know some M.2 SSDs come with a heatsink, but basically with this kind of design, I would leave it like so and just use the standard SSDs. So it goes with, since we're talking about the design, we have some standard design when we're talking about carbon boards. You have some carbon fiber going throughout the I/O cover and a bit on the passive heatsinks in a bit different design. I would say it's not like carbon look-alike, but it does have some similarities. And when we're talking about the ports, so two 8-pin EPS, 124-pin. Again, we have 8 PWM connections for your fans. You have, unfortunately, only 2 addressable RGB headers, which I've seen on some other motherboards, particularly on Z790, even 3 addressable RGB headers, 2 on top and 1 at the bottom. Here we have 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom. We have also an RGB header as well, so you don't forget about that. We have additional 2 USB 2.0 for your front panel or some controllers. Now, the I/O overview. We have a flash BIOS button, 4 USB 2.0, HDMI and DisplayPort. We have 5 USB 3.2 generation 2 10 gigabits per second type A. Then we have 2.5G LAN, USB 3.2 generation 2x2 20 gigabits per second type C. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections for your antennas, and then we have standard audio connections, so CS out, line in, line out, RS out, microphone, optical SPDIF out. In terms of graphic interface, we have 2 PCI 5.0x16 and 1 PCI Express 3.0x16. We have 4 DIMMs for DDR5 at 6400 MHz, but with the BIOS update it goes up to 6666 in XMP enabled. So we have 4 M.2 Gen 4x4 64 gigabits per second slots, 1 M.2 Gen 3x4 32 gigabits per second slot, and it supports Intel Optane technology. I know you can find all of these specifications online and you can read them up, but I do want to state them just in case you don't want to read them. Of course, makes a bit of a sense, right? As already stated, the design is immaculate and you can really do wonders with this board in terms of performance, but also in terms of liquid cooling and everything else. But if you decide to go with, for instance, Carbon EKX, you get VRM's covered processor and the first M.2 slot, which is of course amazing, right? Now for the synthetic benchmarks. In Cinebench R23 with 12900K, in single thread score we got 2014. In multi-thread score we got 27,621. For the DDR5s I used the Kingston Fury Renegade RGB 6400 MHz. Memory copy went up to 89,071 megabytes per second. Read speeds go up to 97,059 megabytes per second. Memory write goes up to 86,832 and the latency is 64.7 nanoseconds. As already stated, VRM temperatures in full load go up to 61 Celsius degrees, which is really outstanding. Corona 1.3, 56 seconds to render everything. But of course, when we go to the memory performance, comparing DDR4 with DDR5, it's obvious we get much higher score than usual. And comparing VRM temperatures with the Z690A Pro with DDR4 RAMs, that board got 64 degrees Celsius on VRMs, this one has 61. So quite interesting board, still with the price tag that is actually, if you're going in a high-end build and you still don't want to invest in the Z790, this one is still viable without a doubt, and it does pair up quite nicely with 12900K. Unfortunately, I don't have a 13900K to test it out and to do loads of other benchmarks, which would be quite interesting also to see, but that'll be it for today. Quite shorter video when we're talking about benchmarks for the motherboard, but you already seen loads of tests when we're talking about this board in particularly. So yeah, most of it you've seen my builds with this board and the, as already stated, Carbon EKX. So that's all there is to it. If you want to pair this up, the 12900K with the Z690 Carbon Wi-Fi, I'll place the links below so you can check it out easily. Just click the links in the description, you'll be redirected directly to your local Amazon. If you're new to the channel or if you didn't do this, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button and notification bell for all of you guys that are here so you don't miss any future content, of course, and eventually maybe even some additional builds with this board so you can enjoy the time lapse and everything else concerning some custom builds or anything similar to that. Thank you for watching today's one. Hope I'll see you next time. Bye bye.